We are live. So welcome everyone on the May 20 Node.js Diagnostic Working Group meeting. And we are going to start with an agenda, or maybe before that, is there anything what we should put on agenda and not on the agenda yet?
Okay. I have added a very late topic to the agenda.
Okay. Have you already put it on the agenda, or?
I believe I have put it in the doc.
Okay, then just add it to the doc and then we can discuss. Okay, let's start with the first one. I added that one. I already commented on the GitHub issue that I would like to discuss it today. But unfortunately, my focus really changed at my daily job at Netflix. And because of that, it's just really hard for me to dedicate time and focus to this working group. And I believe that this working group would deserve someone who is more passionate and dedicated to orchestrating it. So I would like to discuss how kind of step down from the chairmanship and the election of a new chairman would work, and what's the timeline for that. I mean, obviously it's not, if we can do it now, it's not like something, then I will just drop it and so I can still do it until we don't find a new one. I mean, I don't know how many people would be interested or what the process. I asked Mateusz privately if he would be interested. I know he would be interested. Maybe other people would be interested. I don't know, up to discussion, like just maybe the process first. Like, I don't know, people who are in multiple working groups, like what's the process for this?
So as far as I understand, the last time we did not have an election as such. It was kind of a consensus seeking. I may be wrong.
Yeah,
how was the last time election?
I'm trying to think of a working group where we've actually had an election. I think it's usually just, there's one champion who's willing to do it. And so, I guess your first question is like, who's interested? And even if we have like, 2 people, that would maybe be good to have them share that so that it's, you don't have to make it to every meeting, right?
In my experience, it seems to be less like a politics sort of situation where people want the role and more it's a bunch of work that's like not it.
Okay, that completely makes sense. I just want to be like, following the process if there is anything, not being like, this is what's happening from tomorrow. Okay, I guess I will open a GitHub issue. I guess that's the minimum from my side. And I guess we should ping other people. I mean, obviously I would be interested now hearing who is interested, but I guess we should ping the group in that issue because maybe someone is not here who is interested. I don't know, those kind of things. So I will do that. Open an issue.
But it would be good to ask who's here, who's interested in.
Yes, absolutely. So who is interested, who is here?
So as far as I'm concerned, looking back at my engagement in this diagnostic working group, I can say that, I mean, we had times when we did not have enough participation. So many items in the plate, but not enough traction and things like that. At least at this point, I'm happy that we have a handful of folks who are motivated, who are able to take up the work and who are discussing and things like that. That's my key motivation. Not really keen to run as a chair or anything, but, I'm happy to co-lead. I mean, technically, I don't know what it means, but kind of running the show when somebody is not available, that kind of a thing I'm happy to do, but definitely not for a competition or not for a specific role as such. Does that make any sense?
So it sounds like maybe Mateusz and Jarish are willing is the way to put it, right?
Yeah. I mean, Matthias, do you want to speak? Because we just spoke privately that you would be maybe interested.
Yeah, so I've been involved in the working group for 3 years now, I think. I've seen a lot of changes from when the working group didn't have many participants to its peak activity, and back to right now where we kind of in between. We have some active folks that are joining the meetings almost weekly, but not as many folks as we had in the past. And yeah, as Jiri said, I'm also interested in running the show. I'd be fine with having 2 people. I think it's probably even a good idea considering we have weekly meetings right now, so we can alternate. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter, if you open an issue, just put it in and say that Jarish and Matthias have volunteered, but is anybody else interested? That would probably cover it. And unless somebody else says, hey, I really want to do it, then we can just move forward with the 2 of them doing that.
Then in terms of timeline, I'm going to open that issue right after this meeting. I will say that we already heard that Matthias and Jiras would be interested in a cooperation as well. And I will keep it open so people don't feel left out who couldn't attend today. And if other people are not interested, then I guess it's up to Giresh and Matthias to discuss the details. And that's what it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Then next one, discuss usage and support of eBPF. I haven't seen this, but I don't even have to guess to know it was Matthias.
It was not me. It was
really? Oh. Okay. Numero 9.
It was Anton, I think. And it was mostly to present an explanation of eBPF in the last meeting, and this was accomplished. One action item we had was to revisit the user journeys we have to see where eBPF would be a good fit.
Is it something we plan or you already did?
Yeah, revisiting the user journeys is something we are planning to do, but we haven't done yet. So I think it's good to keep in the... Yeah, I'm not sure if it makes sense to keep in the agenda because we don't look at the agenda when we are doing the user journeys. But at the same time, we should have some way of remembering. So since we don't have another way, I think we should keep in the agenda. But I don't think we have anything to discuss today.
Okay.
Unless someone else has anything in mind.
I mean, there could be a deep dive, eBPF deep dive, I guess. I mean, it's kind of the opposite because we do deep dives on use cases, but if this is something which affects multiple use cases, it could be a good way to discuss it. This is just an idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a deep dive if, like, for example, Matthias knows a lot about how it works, and I'd come to a meeting to learn more about that. I guess the suggestion of covering them in the best practices work that we're doing makes sense, but that separate session might help other people contribute on that front when we get to those sections.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would be also interested to hear.
Matthias, do you think that makes any sense, or?
Oh yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, cool. What's the next deep dive for next meeting? I mean, the question more like, do we want to, I mean, it's not like following the original deep dive agenda because we didn't have the original deep dive agenda, but we still have items which is unfilled. So it could be either we just chime in the eBPF because it's new, shiny, we are excited about it, or just to keep the, keep it going, or we just continue with the odd ones.
I'm wondering if we weren't quite finished last week, right, Matthias, on the use case we were working through?
Yeah, we still have at least some items to discuss about performance.
I'm just wondering if we should finish that one off and then we could slide the eBPF one between that and the next major section that we tackle.
I absolutely agree. Sorry, I wasn't there on the previous one. I didn't know it wasn't finished.
I also agree. I think we should finish the one we are working on right now and then move to the BPF stuff.
Okay, so next deep dive is finishing next week. Was it the CPU performance?
We changed it to be a more general performance understanding of Node.js applications.
Okay. And then in 3 weeks, it could be the eBPF. Okay. If we do the eBPF in 3 weeks, would you, Matthias, to prepare with some intro?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
I can try to come up with some examples. I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, it'd be good.
We already had the technical overview last 2 weeks ago when Anton presented.
Okay. I mean, we can also include, invite other folks from other working groups if we believe that they are interested or related to what they are doing. Because it's a fairly educational deep dive, I guess.
Agree.
Okay.
I think maybe James would be interested. He is looking at tracing in general, and he wants to make sure that the BPF use case is covered as well.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next topic. The COVID-19 and working group sitting. We just keep this one open if anything changes for anyone. So I'm not going to ask anyone separately. It's more like if you have something to share now, then please speak. Otherwise, we can just go to the next topic. Okay, I take it as a no update. Report version semantics are not defined. I think it's still just.
Yeah, I still have to reply to the thread. One thing I've been thinking this morning is the downside of having a schema instead of versioning is that the schema will probably be stored on the node.js program, whereas with the version you can understand the format without knowing what the binary was or what the version was, even though the report has the node.js version. So for parsing of arbitrary reports, maybe versioning makes more sense.
In terms of the schema, would it just be a link to the right schema?
Yes, as long as you have internet connection.
Right. I guess I'm just wondering though, is that actually like if you have a report version, you still need to map that back to something, which you probably have to look up on the internet too, right?
Not necessarily. Your parser could implement parsing for specific versions, and if it's anything that's not a recognized version, the parser could fail.
Right.
So you'd have the.
Does the schema have a unique identifier in it?
We could do that, yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's something that could be used similarly.
We don't have a schema yet. We just came up with this idea in a past meeting.
Right.
So if we want to add a identifier, I think that would be totally feasible.
I guess what you really lose is the ability to like have any inheritance from, like, a schema could be changed in any number of ways. So you can't really say like if it's this schema, or like with a number, you might be able to say like 5 and below, I'm going to do all this kind of processing, right?
Yes. With this schema, you'd need to test by feature, for example.
Right. But I think we also have the problem that in terms of backports, it may actually be pretty hard to make the version number be useful in terms of, 5 and lower be meaningful.
Yeah, that's why we came up with the schema.
Yeah.
To avoid the problem with backporting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there, if we can make it so schemas have an easily, like, you don't necessarily need to have the schema. You can get the unique ID, and if you wanted to do parsing yourself, do something with that number versus the schema itself. But the schema is the definition of what's there. I guess the only challenge too is keeping that schema up to date with reality, right? If that's a separate.
We could have tests for that, I think.
Right, okay. So when you backport something, it would break if the schema is not still valid, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So where the schema is patched or where the schema is stored. If the schema is stored in the node.js binary, so maybe we can edit the report, diagnostic report against the schema with the node.js binary.
Right, it would likely need to be in the repo to do that kind of testing. And then I wonder if the unique, would there be like a unique, the hash or anything from the repo that we could use to represent not a version number, but a number for a particular schema?
So I think we should comment on the issue with the pros and cons we are raising here, both with versioning and with schema.
Yep.
Just to make sure it's covered and to gather more ideas from others.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Then next one, CPU profiling roadmap. Doesn't ring a bell to me. It looks a very old issue. Where is it back? Did someone put it back? Oh, Matthias, you added back in April 7.
Which one?
The Node.js CPU profiling roadmap.
Oh, yes. This one is mostly to track collaboration between us and V8 with regards to missing points in the V8 profiling roadmap. For example, Linux perf today is the probably most efficient solution in terms of not introducing overhead, but it's only available on Linux. Whereas the V8 CPU profiler is the most stable one, but there has been report from several folks about performance issues, about overhead when starting and when collecting data. So the issue is back to, since this is not something we can solve ourselves, the issue is back to the agenda to raise these topics to the VA team and try to start collaboration with them again. And maybe also with the Chrome DevTools team. I didn't have time to start the conversation yet. But that's basically where we are at now.
Okay. Thank you. So is there anything to discuss now, or just you are going to update that issue?
I don't have anything in mind. If anyone has any comments on the issue, I can share that I have been using the V8 CPU profiler in production and didn't see any problems. But I didn't run any like very exhaustive tests. I still want to do that to compare the startup overhead between this and Linux perf. Okay. Also, I think someone suggested that we could have a way to capture the results from the CPU profiler without stopping the profiler. And thinking back, that's the same approach used by the heap profiler. So maybe we can talk with V8 to add this feature as well. It's useful when you are taking multiple profiles over the course of a application.
Cool. Anything else about CPU profiler? If not, then async hooks. Steven, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So over the last week, I've been working on trying to figure out if there's a way that we can hook into the microtask queue directly. There was a discussion in one of the diagnostics issues suggesting the idea of like refactoring how promise hooks works. I basically pointed out that promises themselves are not actually async. It's only microtask queue that's async. So they're very similar to event emitters. Like the resolve reject is effectively emit, and then is the like on like handler attachment. So I basically had the idea of trying to hook into the microtask queue directly, and then we can like reestablish the context at an earlier point, at a lower level, which the idea I think is still reasonable, but just approach. I was looking at the idea of possibly trying to subclass the microtask queue because context new accepts like a microtask queue as an argument. You can give it whatever microtask queue you want. So in theory, we could subclass it, but that actually doesn't work out. The microtask queue that's exposed in the V8 header is basically an opaque type. It's missing a bunch of the data from like the actual internal version, and it's specifically missing the particular variant of the enqueue microtask function that we actually need to be able to intercept most of the types of microtasks created within V8. So that approach doesn't really work. We'll have to make changes to V8. So now I'm starting to look at like rethinking the design and going at it with the approach that, yeah, we're gonna have to actually make a change to V8 for this. I have like dug through the V8 code base a bunch before, so I'm like a little bit familiar with it, but it is very complicated, so it will take some time. And yeah, I haven't contributed to it yet, so I'm hoping I can track down some people that have contributed before and can help out a bit. I've reached out to a couple people, but no luck so far.
Okay, cool.
Uh,
Yep, sorry, go ahead, Marcus.
So just one comment on subclassing the microtask queue. You might want to check with V8 if they are not going to remove that capability from the engine. I remember Shu was mentioning that he was going to change something. He was going to remove something from the microtask queue extensibility part, but I don't remember exactly what. So just check before implementing anything, because that's not something that's available in any V8 version that we have on Node.js today. But I think it's already available on tip of 3 of V8.
Yep. Yeah, I've been like comparing the source between like, what V8 master is and what's actually in Node right now, and it does diverge a bit. So yeah, who is it you said to contact?
Shu, he's involved in the TC39 as well.
How do you pronounce his name, or just can you put the dots?
Yeah, I'm gonna comment on.
Thank you.
I'm gonna add to the docs. I think it's better.
See if I can track them down and just have
He is usually on the IRC, so.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, more about async hooks, or should we move to zones? I take it as a moving to zones. So do you want to talk about the zones proposal? Okay.
Yeah, since we have a very, the next TC39 meeting will be held on the early of June. So it's time to put the agenda to the TC39. So I was planning to proposing add this topic to the next TC39 agenda on June 2nd. And we have a few to-dos in the last meeting of this topic. And I have changed the proposal to adopt async log storage into the proposal and consider the cancellation proposal, which is on stage 1. And I have investigated through node.js, like HTTP abort and some kind of other cancellation actions, which is have different behaviors to our to my expectation. So maybe we can have a separate issue on this topic since the cancellation proposal is still on stage 1.
Yep, thank you for fixing up. Okay, when you say it's a separate topic for the diagnostic working group or the TC39?
We can discuss this on the diagnostic group.
Mm-hmm.
Since we have things in Node.js like HTTP abort and some other actions to abort cancel async resources and async tasks.
Okay. I don't know who others are involved in the zone proposal from our group. Is there anyone who are working with it on this? I don't have much context.
Did you have a chance to talk with other delegates?
I have reached to one other delegate, but there is no much comment on this proposal. So I'm planning to raise up this issue on the next T39 meetings so that we can get more attention on this proposal.
Right. Just a suggestion. Maybe you want to talk with Bradley and Benjamin before the meeting, or even before suggesting for June, because they are the ones who blocked zones, and you probably want to get alignment with them before bringing it to the meeting. Otherwise, they might decide to block it again, and then you have to wait 3 months to get to stage 1 again.
Yeah. This is a good suggestion. So maybe I can reach them out in the next week before the meeting.
I mean, you can mention them in the issue on diagnostics. Both of them are involved in the node.js org.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's just on TC39, it's better to get feedback from possible from the most informed delegates before the meeting instead of waiting to get feedback only on the meeting. Usually the presentation ends up being better and there is less chance of it being blocked.
Sounds good to me. I'm going to ping them on the topic and so that we can get further discussion on the proposal and later we can present on the meeting.
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay. Do we have anything else on this one or other topics? Otherwise, we can give back 20 minutes to everyone.
I'm sorry, I could not hear the last part, so I'm not sure whether we discussed the Collab Summit proposal.
Oh, no,
No, we haven't. Sorry. Then go ahead.
So I proposed as an agenda item to the end of the issue. Basically, Collab Summit is approaching. We haven't seen any items going into the proposal list. So just wanted to check whether it makes sense to submit one or more proposals. Just for the context, that in the last Montreal Collab Summit, what I presented with the consensus from this working group was the general status of the various activities in the working group, plus the next prioritized items, etc. So, in my opinion, anything that benefit from wider discussions, anything that we are actively engaged in, any messages that we want to pass to the wider collaborators, anything makes sense. Matthias proposed tracing in the core as a theme. It looks really great to me.
That's actually interesting because I've seen James commenting somewhere that he's interested in hosting a session for tracing. So I think it's more a matter of we attending that session. And there's also another session for promise debugging, promise diagnostics in general, which is also probably something we'd be interested in. So I think there are folks submitting proposals that are related to diagnostics, even though they are not in the diagnostics working group, or at least not actively involved in the working group. So we should also keep an eye on those proposals to avoid duplicating and to make sure we attend the ones that are interesting for us.
That's definitely good. It did seem like last time it potentially generated some interest from people. So the kind of like what we're working on and where we need help might help. And like, I guess it'd be, the goal is like not a working session for ourselves because we're already doing that. But if we can get people who wouldn't normally attend and try and convince them to get involved.
I have my doubts if this would work in a online format, or if this would be productive in a online format. Although I think we have one-on-one sessions. I mean, like introductory sessions in the summit this time. So maybe we can fit something in there. But
yeah, there is the first day that I think is meant for ramping people up.
Yeah, I think if we have something introductory for that part of the session, it might be a good idea. But to have something like a general explanation of what the working group do in the second day, I don't think it's worth it. I think if we get more focused discussion, it would be better.
To be honest, I think there is no better way to involve more people than if we have interesting educational topics. So maybe as we discuss the EBP F1 could be more like a webinar where we even invite public folks. If we like the idea and kind of use it as like, hey, we are discussing these interesting topics, you can be involved. I mean, we don't have to use the eBPF, just that's an example because we discussed today that maybe more people could be interested. So almost like doing some deep dives sometimes in a more like promoting marketing in like this public event where you can learn about this and that, and let's see people join, maybe even record it. I mean, they are recorded anyway, but like kind of cut it in a more professional way and put it out. I don't know, it's just an idea.
Yeah, it is interesting. Think about that.
One of my motivation is to bring more participants into the working group. So towards that end, one of the things that will work is to showcase what we delivered or what we developed in the last 1 year or so. For example, the async hooks, async context, diagnostic report, things like that, and provide the explanation to the user journeys and the best practices and things like that. That really user journeys and best practices really attracted a lot of attention when we talked about that in the last time. So we could also showcase some of the results, and I think that would be one of the way to get more folks on board.
Even like thinking of the user journeys, it might be an opportunity to say, these are the tools, these are the things we've documented. Give us your feedback if you know of any others, or kind of, mix Peter's suggestion of we could use it as an educational to say, here's the best practices that we have so far, but then also hopefully cast it as, then let's have a discussion to see if there's other views or input on them as well.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Yeah, I would like to propose that.
It's kind of like come learn about these best practices that we've got so far, and give us your expertise to make them better or something.
Yeah.
Come to an interactive session on problem determination and diagnostics.
Yeah.
To do it, but I dropped the ball. If someone else wants to pick it up, that we discussed, we want to make them part of the node.js website. I think it still would be the best way, kind of promote those kind of content.
If there are people who wants to learn, they will come as a consumer. People who have better insights, who can improve the documentation, they can also take part in that. So both ways beneficial. I agree. So is there any last day or something for the submission proposal? Anybody knows about that?
I don't know, but they will be scheduling them, so it's probably worth submitting sooner than later.
Okay.
Like, it sounds like you're volunteering to submit that one?
I'm volunteering to submit on the best practices and the user journeys. I'll definitely put up an abstract, or I'm thinking I should open an issue in the repo itself, so that we can all look at the possible abstracts, and whoever wants to co-propose or things like that.
What some of the other working groups did is just open the issue in the Summit repo. Hold on, I got to be back in a second. Oh, sorry. Sorry, hi, yeah.
Okay, so what Michael is suggesting is open the issue in the submit repo itself and iterate over there, decide who is joining and what is the final form of the draft and things like that there itself.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Then that's for today. Michael will be surprised we are not here when he comes back, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.